Welcome to T.O.L Studios, and today we're going to take a basic approach at the guitar and just look at the letters that we use in music and how we're going to apply those to the neck of the guitar. And just a simple approach to show you where they actually go. My next lesson I'll go in more depth to tell you how I know that, but it's kind of like me just giving you the answers for today. I'm going to kind of take a simple approach going to each string one by one how the letters work, and just keep going down until we finally get to this high string or the thin string. On the next lesson I'll show you how to take that information, group them together like into sections so we can learn like this part of the neck and then this part and this part. But I'm going to do that in the next lesson. That's what I'm going to take today, just to show you the actual way that the notes are going to work. So before this makes sense, knowing the notes on the guitar neck, we have to understand when we tune the guitar what we're tuning to. So some of you might know this, but the ones that don't, your sixth string or your low string, that's going to be your E note. And again, the sixth string is the thickest string. So that's an E. When we go to the fifth string, that's going to be an A. Then our fourth string is going to be a D. Then our third string is going to be a G. Our second string is going to be a B. And then our first string, which is going to be the thinnest string, that's an E. So you have two E's. We have our sixth string, or the thickest string, an E. And then we have our first string, which is also an E. And that's going to be these six strings. When you play them, what we refer to as an open note, those make those sounds. Now we're going to start to learn, when you push your finger on these frets, how we make different notes. So taking a look at the sixth string, we're going to look at how we're going to place your finger, and I'm just going to explain what letters they are. Okay, so when we go to the first fret, which your frets are going to be these little boxes here. So like we refer to this as the first fret. This whole thing's the second fret, third fret, fourth fret, all the way down to the guitar till you run out of room. So each little box, or however you see that, that's an actual fret. And then we talk about that again. We also have one that's like an invisible fret. It's our 0 fret. That's the one I basically just showed you. When you're playing your strings open, that's your 0 fret. So a lot of times you're going to see me point to here just so you see that like a box, like one of these. So this would be like your 0 fret, 1 fret, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Okay, guitars also have these dots on it. Think of the dots. Every guitar is a little different. This is pretty common, but different guitar models are different. The dots are telling you like a shortcut to your frets. So like in this case, there's no dot on these two. That just tells me I'm on the 3rd fret. There's no dot. So there's a dot here, 5th fret. No dot. Dot here, 7th fret. No dot. Dot here, 9th fret. Then it skips 2. So that's going to be the 12th fret. And that's why they normally put 2 circles, just letting you know it's the 12th fret. I'm going to show you here in a minute, when you get to this fret, we're going to be back at the same notes that these open notes were. They're just going to be a higher sound. Okay, so let's get started. You've got your E is the open 6th string, and again that's your open note. When you put it at the 1st fret, that's going to be an F. Then we're going to skip a fret. So we've got our F here. We're going to skip the 2nd fret and go here. That's going to be a G note. Then we're going to skip a fret and go to the 5th fret. That's going to be an A. Then we're going to skip a fret. That's a B. And then we're going to go right next to it, and that's going to be C. Then we're going to skip one. So we're on the 10th fret, that's a D. We're going going to skip one. And there we are at those two dots right here. That's back to an E, but that's a higher E than back when I did the open note. So let's look at that pattern one more time. We've got the 0 fret, or the string open, that's an E. First fret, that's going to be an F. We're going to skip a fret and go to the 3rd fret, that's our G. Skip a fret and up to the 5th fret, A. Skip a fret up to the 7th, a B. Then right next to it on the 8th fret, a C. Then we're going to skip a fret up to the 10th fret, that's a D. Then we're going to skip a fret, and the 12th fret will be an E. So if you notice, there's two sets of letters that are going to go right next to each other, and that's back when we started the open note to the F. So E to F is basically right next to each other, and I'll teach you later, but that's what we call a half step. So a half step's when you go up one fret. Or when we eventually got to the B note on the 7th fret, C went right next to it on the 8th. So B and C go right next to each other, and then our E and our F go right next to each other. And remember, I kind of point to this, but those are your open notes. That's when we're picking the string open. But see that, like that note's coming from here, that way it kind of helps you see that they're right next to each other. Okay? Now as I get into scales on the next lesson, I'll explain that a little bit better. Okay, if we go to our 5th string, if you remember, I told you earlier that's an A. So if that's an A, we have to remember what we just did on the 6th string. We found our A on the 6th string at the 5th fret. So if I was telling you that's an A, and then I told you to skip one and go up to the 7th fret for your B, then when we go to this 5th string, we have to follow that same pattern. So if A is the open note, then I have to skip the 1st fret, go to the 2nd fret, and see when I hold my fingers like that, that's 0 fret to the 2nd fret, or A to our B, and that's the same pattern we would have done on the 6th string when I was on the 5th fret, which was the A, then I skipped one, went up to the 7th for the B. So again, 5 fret to the 7th fret, and that's up me on the 6th string, that's A to B. Same thing on the 5th string. The string itself, when we play it open, or our 0 fret, A, skip a fret, I'm on the 2nd fret, there's my B. So I'm basically following all the letters in the same pattern. The only difference is we just started with in a different sequence. We started with A, where on this string we started with our E. But our letters are going to end up in the same pattern. So if A's there and B's here, we're going to put C right next to it, just like we did on the 6th string. So B's going to go on the 2nd fret, C's going to go on the 3rd fret, and then we're going to do the same thing we did on the 6th string. So C's here, we're going to skip a fret, and D's going to go at the 5th fret. Then we're going to skip a fret and go up to the 7th fret. That's our E. And now again we're on an E, so F's going to go right next to it. That's the two letters. So F is going to go right next to it. Then we're going to skip one and come up to the 10th fret, which would be our G note. And then we're going to skip and come up to the 12th fret. Now we're on an A. And that A again would be an A higher than what we started with on the open A. So there's an A, the open note. And when I got all the way up here to the 12th fret, that's another A. Okay, every string's going to work this way. It's just you start with a different letter. So when we go to the 4th string, we're going to do everything we've been doing on the 5th and the 6th string. It's just we start with a different letter. So this is a D. So I'm going to do the same pattern. When I go up to the D to the E, I have to do it the same way I did on these two strings. So if this is the open note, and that's our D, we're going to skip a fret and come up to the second fret, and that's an E. And remember, the two sets of letters that always go next to each other are the E and the F and the B and the C. So if this is an E, that's why I'm going to tell you F has to go right there. And see, they're right next to each other. So if I'm on an F, I'm going to skip one, come up here to the 5th fret, that's my G. I'm going to skip a fret and come up to the 7th. That's going to be my A. I'm going to skip a fret, come up here to the 9th, and that's my B. And there's the other set of letters that go right next to each other. I have a B, so that's why this is going to be a C, and they're right next to each other. Now I'm on my C. I'm going to skip one up to the 12th fret. I'm on a D, and again I'm right back to what I started with on the open note, D, the open. And then when I get all the way up here to the 12, that's a higher D. Okay? I'll explain the rest of these notes here in a second, like farther, but we're just going to keep stopping at the 12th fret for right now. Okay, so if I go down to the 3rd string, we've got to do the same pattern we did on these strings. The only difference is we start with a different letter, which is a G. But if that's a G, I'm going to do the same thing I did on these three. G, I'm going to skip a fret and go up here to A. Then I'm going to skip a fret and come up here to the 4th fret, that's my B. And remember, that's the set of letters that go next to each other, so I'm on a B, meaning C is going to go right next to it on the 5th fret. Okay, and then if I'm on a C, I'm going to skip a fret, so C, skip a fret, up to the 7th fret, that's my D. Going to skip a fret, up to the 9th fret, E. And then these two go next to each other. There's my E. F's going to go right next to it. Then the F is going to go up 2 frets to the G. And I'm on that 12th fret. So again, G, back to what I started on when I played the string open, meaning the 3rd string open. And I'm up here on the 12th fret to a G. Okay, now we're going to go to the 2nd string. Our 2nd string's a B. And that's one of those that go right next to one. So if B's the open note, C's going to go right next to it here on the 1st fret. And then if I skip a fret and come up here to the 3rd fret, that's my D. Skip a fret, come up here to the 5th fret, E. And there's the other set of letters, that's an E, so F goes right next to it. Okay, and then if I'm on F, I'm going to skip one. That's my G. Skip one. That's my A. And I'm going to see how it has the two dots again. If this is A, skip one. That's my B. And I'm back to what I started on. I've got my open B, or again your open note. And then when I come up here to the 12th fret, there's your B. Now we're back to the 1st string, or on the 1st string, and that's an E. But keep in mind, even though this is a higher E, if the 6th string was an E, you have to do the letters exactly the same way I showed you on this string. So if you remember what we did on this one, it's got to be the same on this. So if we've got our open note E, that's why F goes right next to it. And that's why we skip the 2nd fret, go up to G on the 3rd, skip a fret, the 5th fret is A, skip a fret, 7th fret, B, skip a fret, 9th fret, B, and if you caught what I did there, It's easy to do. B and C go next to each other. I was about ready to put it up here, and that would have been the wrong sound. So the C wants to go right next to it. So the B was on the 7th fret, and that's why C would not go to the 9th fret. It needs to go to the 8th fret. So then if I got C on the 8th, I'm going to skip one and go up to the 10th fret. And that's my D. Then I'm going to skip one and go up to the 12th fret. And then that's going to be an E. And the same thing if the first string was open E. When we get to the 12th fret, that's going to be the E. Now, everybody's usually smart enough to realize you don't see guitar players playing songs and always going. You can, but most people notice you see guitar players doing something more like. Kind of playing in what we refer to like little box shapes. That's what I'm going to start to show you in the next lesson, and that's what it comes from knowing how these strings work and where the letters go, and then taking the same thing I showed you and how to play it here. To get an idea, if I showed you this was an open E and F goes next to it, and then we skipped and went up to the 3rd fret for G, and then I was teaching to go up to the 5th fret, and that's an A. Well, then I'll teach you don't have to play the A there. That note is going to be the same thing as this 5th string open, which means now we could go, instead of this, we could go and then hit the 5th string open. And see, that's going to allow you to play in sections, and then I'll show you, you'll see guitar players going diagonal, and it's from learning how all this comes together and then how to make each different approach. So that's a basic concept of like how the letters work. As simple as that is, I would go over every string and memorize those. Now, when you go back up to the 12th fret, I kept stopping at the 12th. And remember how every one of these were back to the same notes that we did as the open notes. But that means if we know these were the opens, and then we moved and like E was the open, and then F, same thing's going to happen up here. When you're on your E, then even though I stopped there, if that's an E, F has to go next to it. And the same thing I did earlier, if that's an F, I'm going to have to skip one. G, so I'm still following the same pattern. G, skip one up to A. Skip one up to B. And then B's right there, C's going to go right next to it. And if I went up one more, if that's my C, I'm going to skip one, and technically that'd be a D. But a lot of times I'll show you where you'll play these notes, but in each guitar is different. Some, like acoustics, a lot of times it's hard to play these notes right in here. That's why I usually just go at least up to that 12th fret so you understand what's going on. And then depending on what type of guitar you have, you just continue the same pattern till you run out of room. So that's how that 12th fret works going past it. So same thing if I was on the 1st string, if that was an E, and I'm on the 12th fret, the F has to go right next to it. So that'd be on the 13th fret, just like I did down here from the open note to the 1st fret. So if that makes sense, everything you'd see down here, you're doing the same thing right up here. And it's just till you run out of room on the guitar. Okay, so I'll finish with that today. So again, the basic steps, but memorize those notes for the open strings. And again, that 6th string is a E. Your 5th string is an A. Your 4th string is a D. Your 3rd string is a G. Your 2nd string is a B. Then your 1st string is another E. Okay, and then that's what helped us know all these. And remember, the 6th string is the thickest string. Your 1st string is your thinnest. Okay, and then in the next few lessons, I'll show you learning those patterns is what's going to allow you to do stuff like. and I'll break that down much slower, but what I'm going to do is it's knowing how those notes work like I showed you today. Then the next lesson showing you how to do these patterns, and then in another lesson showing you how to connect those patterns. So take the basic approach first, get that down so we can get to all that fun, cool stuff I just did there at the end. Have some fun. Thank you for watching T.O.L Studios videos, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the second